Ladies and gentlemen, please take a seat. And people near the table there, please don't sit on the table because it's not built for sitting people. The next speaker is going to talk about a subject which I think quite a lot of people somewhere heard about it, but not very much. At least that accounts for me. You will tell us about Nextcoin, which is a complete rebuild of. I mean, it's not a form of Bitcoin. It's a complete rebuild and a new code base and such, and a new kind of currency. And he will tell about Lith, which is a economic game which uses Nextcoin as the currency, as the in-game currency. So please applause for Bas Wisselink.
Starting out, I won't be using pictures. I usually come into these kinds of things and just listen and see what pops up. That's the way I like to work. And a few things that I'd like to start out with. Who knows Next?
I have 60 million Next.
Yes, they're dropping in value at the moment. That's a bit of a problem. We had a bit of a problem.
Next company.
Yeah. One thing that for the people that know it, this is not for the people that know, but the people that don't know it, is that Next is not a currency. I want to start out with that. It's a platform. It isn't meant as a way to replace Bitcoin. It is not meant as an altcoin. One of the reasons that this gets confused quite a lot is because it started out as a coin. In December, Next was launched by quite a controversial way via an Bitcoin talk. We are still haunted by that idea. You can ask me questions after, please, but not on here. One of the things that Next is doing is, and this is one of the things that the last speaker also was talking about in a way, is it innovates on the key function of Bitcoin. And basically one of the most important things that Bitcoin has given us is the blockchain. That's one of the reasons why I also in the crowdfunding topic started out with the transparency, the fact that we can see stuff, that we can track them, and that we always know what happened with the currency. The blockchain can do many other things. What we now have with most altcoins that you see is that there is a means of transferring value from one place to another place. But a blockchain can be used to store multiple things, and Next is one of the projects, and there are multiple projects out there. Ethereum is a different one, BitShares is one. E-money, if it ever comes out, will also be one. What Next is to expand this. So, for instance, one of the ways that it adds what we call an asset exchange. And this is one of the things that came up in the crowdfunding topic, is within Next you can issue assets that can be bought by people, and they can be used as equity. They can be used as shares, they can be used as anything that can stand for anything else. It's basically an implementation of the colored coin concept. And the battery is empty. Luckily I come from theatre, that's my old job. The colored coin concept is the basis that a coin, as we call Bitcoin on the blockchain, is basically not a coin, it's just a token. It's something arbitrary that we call a coin and we use it as currency. But colored coins means that it can be anything. If I can convince any one of you here that this token that I have on the blockchain is a car, and I can actually produce the car, I can sell the car on the blockchain, and then of course I need to ship it. But that's a different problem. We do it with assets. basically I could create an asset on the next block and say I am selling these assets and selling these cars, and then produce it. So that's one extra thing you can do with the blockchain. One of the things that I found interesting, we use it to crowdfund, for instance. One of the things, we actually have a Next Cafe in Hungary. We have a community-owned cafe at the moment, and this was one entrepreneur who started out on our blockchain, and he said, okay, I'm going to try this out. I always wanted a cafe, and I'm going to sell these shares in my cafe. At this moment, his IPO, let's call it that, is ongoing, and he's actually buying a cafe there. And the shareholders, because they are linked, these shares are linked to accounts, can receive dividend for this. So this is one of the things that you can do with a blockchain. One of the other things that we have is actually someone is starting a Next community in France. He decided to try to work out a local currency with Next in France. This is a community of people who want to be separate from most other currencies, and they are trying it out. I have no clue if they will succeed. That's not my problem either, but it's the free way can work with this. Another thing that people are doing, for instance, within Next at this moment is Next Carbon. That's a carbon neutral system that people are, you can buy shares in trees. And these trees will get cut down at some point, and the revenues gotten from these trees can also be issued as dividends. One of the interesting questions that we have, and that I think we all will at some point be in contact with, is legality. Because within our system, because we're one of the pioneers on these systems, is we are running into, are these things actually legal? I think the person in Hungary may be safe, but I know quite a few people in the US that we have are very afraid of our asset exchange. Yes. It's an interesting question to find out and to see how we do this, because we get sometimes people asking about the anti-money laundering, know your customer, actually securities. And it's a question that we also see come up in the Bitcoin community. When you hear sometimes the word Bitcoin Foundation fall, then there is a divide immediately between the Bitcoin. Some people think it's great what they're trying to do. Some people really abhor it because they think they are going too far with government interference. I think this is a topic I will be speaking on BitConference too, that this is one of the topics that's most important for the future. How we are going to deal with, if our currency, whatever currency we are going to use, if it's going to grow and get into real life, we will have to face this kind of questions. I think it's an interesting thing to see where we are going with that. I don't have much time, so I need to cross over. This is a very short thing about Next. I would like to ask you, if you want to know more, please approach me afterwards. It's basically the extension of Bitcoin or Bitcoin functionality, but I will be speaking more on BitConference about this. One of the things that I am doing within Next is, I'm a bit of a weird person within the crypto community a lot of times, because I come from theater and my background is very creative and no technical background except for hanging up lights. That's so I have a different perspective on how cryptocurrency actually can work. For me, it's one of the things that interested me to start when I came in last year, and I was one of the persons that came in rather late, was the fact that it's based on merit. If you come into any crypto community, there is so much openness in what you can do. You can, there's of course a lot of technicians in there, people can code, but there are also a lot of people who can write, people who have services they can offer and who basically in normal life wouldn't really get a chance, but now they can jump in and they can just, if they are good enough and if they want to put in the time, they can make these kinds of things. They can offer their services and they can find like-minded people, like people here, and you talk to people and you make plans and you actually can make them a reality. This is something that I see in the coin communities all around the different communities. I see this very much. One of the things that I started with people was a game based on how to make a proof of stake currency fun. Because in proof of stake, which is next, proof of stake doesn't have mining. And one of the things that really works for a network effect in any coin is that you can mine and actually get coins for free. This is one of the things that before script mining really took off was one of the big things. You could buy a video card, a GPU, and you could start grinding out those. Was at that moment very popular because you could really get millions of those. And we tried to figure out a way to make Next as a proof of stake coin where you cannot create coins. For people who don't know, proof of stake coins have all coins at the start. So you don't make new coins, you only get the transaction costs of blocks. How to make that fun? And we decided to build a game on top of it, using the exchange, which makes it possible for us to link the in-game economy that we're creating to the outside economy. So within Lith, which will be a sandbox game, which will only have a few very simple rules, and for the rest, basically it's a free-for-all. You can take any role, you can earn money, in-game money, but this money can be taken outside the game, and you can exchange it to Next, and Next is directly tradable against USD, Euros, Yen. So it's actually possible to link two economies at that moment together. What we also wanted was to create a real economy, and the way we're creating the real economy is basically also we're taking all rules out. Normally when you have a game, even a big sandbox game, you start out, this is your start, and basically you have a very linear level progression. You go from this to this to this. In our game, it will be possible to take almost any path that you can think of. You can even go outside the game and do things outside the game and bring them back in, because we have the asset exchange in which you can create things outside the game and bring them in. So you can actually, we are trying to get a kind of a two-way system between two economies and see what happens. Because there are no rules, people will get scammed in the game. It's actually one of the things that we're hoping for. Because stress creates creativity, and that will lead to in-game law enforcement, probably. But we want players to organize this themselves. We're not going to do it for them. They're free to do it, they can make their own rules, they can make their own states. It's basically an experiment in how far you can take emergent gameplay. And one of the most well-known emergent gameplay things, how simple things can lead to complex things, is for instance Minecraft. Minecraft is the most simple emergent gameplay that you have. You hack blocks, you get resources, you build things. That's it. But the things that people create within this, and also how much time they invest in this, shows that this kind of concept can be really strong. And now combine that with the fact that you can actually earn money with it. I think we have a really strong concept there. The idea is also that the game will be completely free, because what Next does, and this is, as I said, every transaction costs a transaction fee. Every action that let's say every productive action in the game will be a transaction. So there will be a very small in-game fee for that, in the in-game currency, not in real currency, because that would be really bastardy. But the funds that we create with that, we've made the model for that, will pay for the game, at least for the maintenance of the game itself, and will get a surplus. A step further, we are also selling assets for 20 cents a piece. You have one asset, that's basically the crowdfunding part. So people buy at this moment in, and every asset gives them the right to a certain amount of the surplus that the game will create. So this will take a year because development has just started, so we're not launching a year, but every time actions are taken, they will also give them their money back. And the idea is that it could grow very, very large. The idea for this game is multiple. First, we want to prove that it's possible. We just want to prove that it's possible to have a game that's free, that pays for itself, that you can actually earn money in, and that is fun, of course. It's also a test in how economies evolve by themselves, if left alone, just to see how it works. We think it's really interesting because people can also opt to go out of a certain economy within a game, and they can start their own if they want. It's a bit like what in World of Warcraft happened. At a certain point there was a bug, and this bug killed all the characters. This was the very start of World of Warcraft, and all the characters started dying, and this eventually became a model for epidemics. It's actually being used in science, this game.
South Park.
In South Park, the same. It was repeated, but the interesting thing is that happenings can actually be used in real life situations. So this kind of gaming could actually be an interesting economic model to test for people. I see you looking there.
Yeah, over time.
Yeah, I'm over time.
Are there questions?
Well, I've got a question.
Yeah.
I'm envisioning your game like a Second Life type of sandbox.
Yes.
You can build 3 max models, put them in. I understand.
Yeah.
How? If I look at Second Life, its adoption,
Yeah.
and decline, how would you expect a parallel with this game? I mean, like you're saying, you expect anarchy at some point?
No, I expect anarchy leading to in-game rules. That's because one of the things that I've also seen in our community, for instance, if I take online communities on forums, is that they are very, very capable at self-government. I am quite sure that at some point there will be in-game regulation by the people themselves. There will be a large amount of anarchy in the start. Of course, people run wild when they get freedom.
What, 4chan hijacks? What else could be
Yeah.
happening?
Even things that go wrong are part of the system. And my guess is that you have a few enclaves of civilization within a huge sea of anarchy. If you look at EVE Online, one of the games that does this too, you have safe zones, and apart from that you have a few safe zones governed by players, and around that, please don't venture out, you will be killed.
Yeah.
But that's part of the fun of the game, we think.
Yeah.
Because you can hire mercenaries, that can be a job. And that's an economic factor.
We'll have to go to the next speaker.
Yes, definitely.
Please, a big applause. Like Bas already said, if you want to know more, please visit the BIT conference next week on the Amsterdam Science Park from Wednesday, Thursday to Friday. So